Said being black and being Muslim to me right now is, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. Because if we were to look at the Quran, the majority of the Quran takes place in Africa. The majority of the stories in the Quran are talking about the lives and the lives of black folk and revelation that came to them and how that began to spread through the world. Majority of these stories are taking place inside those contexts. But for whatever reason, if I were to say to you, list for me some black folk in the Quran, what would you say? Right? You say, little girl, say, Luke, I get it. Right? We would begin to let me think about it for a minute. Even though majority of it takes place inside of Africa. So I want us to begin, because especially as Muslims, our default answer of black and Muslim is Bilal ibn Rabah, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. That's like our default answer, as if he was the only black person ever in Islamic history. And so the problem with that, the narrative with that, is that we begin to equate that, we're always equating blackness and slavery. Right? We're not equating blackness with the Quran. We're not equating blackness with righteousness. We're not equating blackness with an intrinsic nature in Islam. But subhanAllah, we're not equating blackness with the origin of its word, which is the origin of aswad is mastery. Right? So how do you, with blackness and mastery, how does that relate? We got to go back to what our brother Sheikh Mikael mentioned before, with when that knowledge comes in. So let's give a review of it. So my daughter, who's a taekwondo, she's 6, she's doing her, she's got her blue belt, right? So when she masters that, what will she get? What color belt will she get? She will get a black belt. And when you have mastered the law, what robe will you wear? You're going to wear a black robe. Right? So that, and how is that? That means that you have mastered a level of language. And so through this, we're going to talk about, we're going to just kind of get through, well, what have black folk mastered in order to live up, or what is it that they need to master, or what lessons must they extract from the Quran and the examples throughout history in order so that they would be considered masters, and masters of what? So I want to talk about Hajar, because this is a woman without a shadow of a doubt that was a black woman. And when we, subhanAllah, the place that she holds in Islam is so great and magnificent in the fact that she's given this great maqam because she stands on yaqeen in the face of some serious in the face of some serious adversity, in the face of what would seemingly be a trial. Have I been left? Have I been abandoned? Right? Am I going to stand alone in this situation? But subhanAllah, Allah literally begins to build the holiest Islamic city and the Islamic state around her. And you cannot finish Hajj, you cannot complete your 5th pillar of this deen unless you walk in the footsteps of Hajar. Right? So, which is deep, because you're going to walk in the footsteps of Anbiya and you're going to walk in the footsteps of Hajar. Right? Which just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just revealing a little bit about her maqam. And she has no idea that about more than 5,000 years later, yes, our beloved Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam would be born in that place, and our deen would be established in that place. But subhanAllah, it would also be the place where Ayman was born. It would also be the place where Barakah, a very black woman who Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam said is the mother after my mother, would be born in that place. It would also not just be the place where Bilal ibn Rabah, when the concept of someone being better than me was being pushed upon him, when a serious oppression was being pushed upon him, he had a spiritual mastery that occurred in that moment, and he was able to push back and say ahad. Right? And even in subhanAllah bihamdi, it's beyond that. This would be the one that Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam will put his bare feet on top of the Kaaba and say, you will be the one who will give the call to Islam. You will call them to iqamati salah, to establish the connection with Allah. Why is this important? because it is not fair, because white supremacy has ruled our understanding so much that we will begin to define blackness on the basis of slavery, on the basis of colonialism. And we have allowed their story to become our story. So even when we introduce into the masajid Black History Month, we start from there. And I'm saying, no, if you want to talk about my history, you got to back that up. Matter of fact, you can start with the Quran. You could start there if you want to talk about my history. And this is important because this kind of stuff divides us. Because we're the people of La ilaha illallah, and not one of us would disagree in terms of the value and the truth of the Quran. So if you start there, we can begin to have a true level of respect, because saying that you're colorblind or I don't see color isn't true respect, it's erasure. It's saying, I'm not going to take the time to get to know you or your value or what contribution your people specifically have brought to the world or to this country. I'm going to pretend like I don't see that. Now, you know you lying. You know when you see me, you ain't have to adjust your TV. You know I was black when I stood up here. What's significant about all of this is that usually when African Americans or black Americans convert to Islam, it's because they found in it an empowerment. They found in it something that spoke to them. Because there's about a 40 to 60 year gap that we find when we are talking about slavery. There's about a 40 to 60 year gap where where they have been robbed of all the aspects of maqasid al-sharia. They have been definitely, when we talk about the preservation of life, if they called the adhan, the first punishment was their tongue would be cut out. If they were caught praying, their feet would be cut off, or it started with their toes. And if they continued to do so, they would be lynched or killed. So I'm talking about preservation of their life. Then we're talking about the preservation of their lineage. They did everything within their power to make sure that their lineage was cut off. They were disconnected from their lineage, and definitely when they stole them from, and I want us to understand, they didn't steal savages. They went into what would be considered West African kingdoms of establishment and civilization, and they said, wow, look at what they have built for themselves. I need for them to build that for me for free in America. They stole them because they were more than qualified. Right? They stole them because they were worthy. So when they stole them, they removed them from their property, from their wealth, and literally the slaves who got off the boat, when you see them, pictures of them naked and in chains, those are not the same people who got on the boat. That's not what they looked like before that. But when we instill these images in our mind, I'm telling you, it leaves an imprint into us today, especially of us who are not from that experience, that they were poor and that they were savages, and then somehow that it was America who civilized them. But if we were to look at, even in terms of the statistics of voting, like more recently, the voting situation that happened in Alabama between Roy Moore and his opponent, when they did the statistics, it was actually black women who tipped the scale. And that's just the example that comes to my mind. When we look at it across the board, we find that African Americans have been a moral consciousness in this country, have been a call to moral code. And I find that always very interesting, because people, for the most part, you know, when the description I hear of black people is like they're poor, or they were thieves, or they were drug dealers, or they were this or that, I said, I don't remember that. Not anywhere in my neighborhood. And no, I wasn't from the hood. That's another thing, right? So when we talk about unity and diversity in the community, we need to visit where is the unity inside between my ideals and my culture, my colorism and my deen. We have to rectify that. And the sad thing about it is, it's scary. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, so you won't enter Jannah with 1 ounce of kibr in your heart. 1 ounce of belief that you're better than somebody else. Not 1 ounce. Which is scary, because we know that this was the disease and the action of shaitan. And where does it come from? So if we were to look at Iblis, right? Iblis comes from, the root of Iblis is balasat, to be hopeless, to lose hope. What did he lose hope in? Right? He's like, I've been worshiping you, Allah. I've been Muslim for how many generations? I speak Arabic, I speak Urdu, I went to, my people, we come from Muslim lands, I've been wearing hijab, I like shaitan, right? He had a very high station. It's like, I've been doing all this, you brought him on the sea, you created him from black mud, you want me to bow down to him? A hopeless set in. I'm not going to get the same status that I've been working for. I'm not going to get the same rank. I'm about to fall out of I'm about to fall out of position. When my status is in danger. You created him from mud, you created me from fire. And so he began to feel like, whoa, wait a minute. Whew. Somebody's going to be better than me? Somebody's going to have a higher rank, a higher status than me? I can't do it. I'm not bowing down. I'm not doing it. Now, what's the significance in that? Because this was a command from Allah. This was an amr from Allah. This is the difference. This is the relationship between amr wal khalaq, the relationship between command and creation. That Allah gives a command, but because we're looking at creation, like, I'm looking at the creation, and Allah's like, do this. I'm commanding you to do this. And I'm like, but this creation, I can't do that because, there's so many of them that, I don't know. I can't let them marry my daughters because, I don't know. They could, I don't know. They won't be able to watch Egyptian movies with me. He's not going to understand my grandmother. He speaks Urdu, and they're not going to be able to understand each other. I don't know. I don't know about his family. I don't know about it. We're going to lose our status. We're going to lose our rank. Somebody's going to look at me and say, "Oh, that's your son-in-law?" Right? When that baby comes out, you're going to be like, "Oh, it's not Safi." Right? We're going to lose. And subhanAllah, from that, it's a deep sickness in our heart. So, being this hashtag, being black and Muslim, is a resurgence. Because once it's a resurgence of moving from that messianic leadership of like El Hajj and Malik Shabazz and some of those other great leaders like Sheikh Ahmed Daoud Faisal, even those great leaders that we had, like even Imam Jamil Al-Amin, and some people who had very strong positions in their community, and recognizing what has happened to them, and then being able to pick up the pieces, right? Which has been a through line in being black and being Muslim, is this spirit of resistance, this spirit of pushing back and saying ahad, that despite the situation, it's Allah Ta'ala I believe in. Right? And being able to say from that spirit of resistance, we will acknowledge, the first thing being black and being Muslim was like, just Eid pictures, just show Eid pictures of you and your beautiful children, right? And then it was like, okay, I'm tired of eating biryani and kebab, at iftars and Eid, like I want some chicken, I want some barbecue chicken, I want some collard greens, some mustard greens, give me some peach cobbler, I really want that, and I want some bean pie, and so, why? Because I'm Muslim too, right? And this idea, I want us to understand that when we talk about culturalism, why I had to check, it was the underlying feeling that there was a problem with black culture, which is why then I had to, when I became Muslim, you tried to put us in all kind of clothes, right? From shalwar, kameez, like all kind of stuff. Because now this is the Muslim clothes, and I can't eat my food anymore because that's not halal food, that's not like Islamic food. So now I have to eat this food. And this is erasure. And so this being black and being Muslim is reclaiming who we are. And trust me, subhanAllah, we might feel initially it's divisive, like being black and being Muslim, does that push us out? No. This calling on this strength, right? That he who knows himself knows his Lord. Calling on that strength, pulling on those, and actually the claim that black Muslims have to America is your history as well. It's your claim to America as well. And so once they're pulling on that strength and picking themselves up, trust me, it will elevate us and benefit us all, bi-idhnillah. So I just say, learn about it, embrace it, be comfortable with it, and let's continue to celebrate each other, and let's really create unity and diversity, not based on color blindness, but based on truth. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.